Video games are puzzles, narratives, and mechanics designed to be experienced and interacted with through an electronic interface. These games have the mechanisms to provide information dynamically to individuals through means not available to more analog mediums. This unique form of information relation between the provider, mechanism, and recipient sparked interest and contemporary artists, thus spawning a type of new media art genre called art games and video game art. Video games provide unique technological bridges between individuals within their communities, forming artificial spaces for connections and diverse experience to emerge from a set visual and mechanical aesthetic. Due to the distinctive ever-changing and growing environments and variables where the game take place and the political or social economic status of the real world, these spaces are a growing place for individual expression and artistic expression. Artists also capitalize on this user experience and interactivity to create their own works and projects. However, the recognition of video games as the model or construction site for these art games and the game artists which produce them and have been and still are experiencing a heavy amount of backlash in the art world and community. This is partly due to the rigid art standards placed and enforced by critics and institutions, compounded by the terms of what is high and low art, which is deeply intertwined with capitalism in the art scene. In addition, the lack of recognizable attention within the art scene has presented a significant concern with the preservation of video games and video game art, where only the most popular and highest deemed of these artworks get their own exhibitions and funding for preservation, leading to the vast majority of video game consoles and their attributing artworks to be left and rot and decay. Including the increasing evolution of console technology, these ever-influential consoles and games are being overlooked and lost to the landfills of worthless garbage. This lack of interest undermines the creative expressions, cultural impacts, and artistic voice of many people, and not just artists, but the impact these expressions have had on developing the players' lives and lived experiences. This preconceived notion that this digital medium is not art has also left few preserved copies of diehard fans to succumb to this rot and corrosion, which happens to thousands of old games, which have no more funding to reproduce or restore them. So, what does this mean for the video games, game art, and art games' future within the world of contemporary art? To begin, many artists have a claim to the dismissal of these art form placed within the art world. Phelan Parker from York University summarizes in the article, An Art World for Art Gamers, that an art game does not have a set of characteristics and bears very little surface similarities, that this lack of essential shared characteristic allows for the experience of the game to be an individualistic process. However, it is this lack of structure that gains controversy within the art world. In 2012, the Museum of Modern Art opened up a 14 video game exhibition titled Never Alone. Some games within this exhibition included Pac-Man, Tetris, and Portal. However, Robert Ebert, who is an American film critic, that came out saying video games can never be art, and later saying that one obvious difference between art and games is that you can win a game. Despite that, the motivation to win a game allows for a deeper understanding of the context within the game itself. Winning a game allows for a sense of importance within the viewer and creates a sense of urgency and failure, allowing for creative problem solving from the viewer, which according to Graham and Liz Coulter-Smith in the article, Art Games Interactivity and the Embodied Gaze, the reason why encouraging creative engagement is important lies in the enduring concept that capitalist culture is dominated by instrumental reason, a term coined by the Frankfurt School theorists, and that this creative outlet of gaming allows for the suppression of this capitalist system placed upon us in the current political moment. And what is contemporary art but a system that allows us to reflect upon our social and political culture as a community or individual? The fact that art games such as Passage, created by Jason Rohrer, which takes the player through an entire lifetime in only 5 minutes, including all the obstacles one will face, has an ending and winning component. A key point of this game, which was pointed out in 2012 in an article by Forrest Wickman of Slate, where this game is not only about playing a game, it makes a big statement that no matter what you choose to do, no matter how many points you win, every game of Passage ends the same way. You go gray, begin to daughter, and die. He finishes by saying, it's 101 pixel by 16 pixel memento mori, and it only works because it's something you play, something you control, or at least think you control. This could only work due to the fact you believe you can win at the game. It plays into your desire to win at the life within the game, which stems from the capitalist nature of our own society, or the American dream. This critical look on contemporary culture was only made available to us because there was winning aspect within the game, which contradicts the opinion of Ebert and proves that the inclusion of an element of completion enhances the artistic element of the piece of art. Moving on, the preservation of video games, game art, and art games goes hand in hand with the amount of recognition it receives from the art world, which is then backed by capitalist motivations. In Keeping the Game Alive, Mark Gutenberger explains the intentions behind preserving these mediums by stating, "It is necessary to find ways to preserve and look and feel of the beginnings of video games history, as well as games that set milestones in the video game history for future generations." Sparking into the question of to what extent do we preserve these games? We need to acknowledge and preserve their history in a way that accurately depicts how they were interacted with at the time. Preserving them in the form of video or annotated display fails to replicate exact viewing experience at the time. You cannot interact with a video screen and the colors will be different on a modernized display. This technology heavily relies on rapidly changing landscape, which unlike older art forms, older variations will become obsolete. With the consumerist nature of the video industry, older versions are thrown away and replace newer versions, leaving only a select few collectors to preserve it. These challenges are further compounded by the decentralized nature of video game development and distribution, where independent developers often lack the resource and infrastructure for long-term preservation efforts. One example of preservation method is the emulator, which in the terms of Mark Gutenberger in Keeping the Game Alive, is that emulation refers to the capability of a device or software to replicate the behavior of different devices or softwares. Then, the emulator allows it to be played onto another modern device. However, it fails to capture the retro aesthetic and feel of playing on the original console, diminishing its experience from the original. In conclusion, the lack of recognition video games, video art, and art games receive prevents it from being legitimized as an art form in the art world, increasing the lack of preservation methods, and preventing the current preservation methods to not fully allow for its original experience to be displayed as an art form, further diminishing its overall impact on its status within the art community. However, through collective action, critical engagement, and community-driven preservation efforts such as the efforts of John Paul C. Dyson, who is the Vice President of the International Center for the History of Electronic Games, which has one of the most comprehensive collection of video games, can work towards acknowledging video games as an essential form of new media art and ensuring their longevity for future generations.